this is RadTechShoe, and I have another Battleborn character review episode for you. And in this video, we're going to be looking at Deande. We're going to be looking at the Jennerit Empire's assassin herself. We're going to be looking at her skill setup, her Helix loadout, her lore and backstory, and we're going to go over some tips and tricks that I have found to beast it up with this assassin on the battlefield. So let's get right into her skill setup. Her first skill is called Hollow Twin. Deande will cloak herself, and she'll deploy a decoy that will fight opponents for 8 seconds. This decoy, this little clone of hers, will have roughly 20% of the current health that she does, and it deals only 25% damage that she is capable of with its melees. And when the clone expires, when it dies, or when it runs out of time, it will explode and deal a set amount of damage to your opponents. Pretty useful, very deceptive, I like it a lot. Her second skill is called Burst Dash. Deande will charge forward and attack her opponents with her fan blades. Her war fans, sorry. I'm used to calling them fan blades, but her enemies that are hit by Burst Dash will have their attack damage reduced by 30%. That is pretty useful, and I definitely like Burst Dash a lot. Not as much as Hollow Twin, but I like Burst Dash. Her ultimate ability is called Blink Storm. Upon activation, Deande will unleash a flurry of 10 strikes directly ahead of her, stunning up to 5 opponents and dealing a small amount of damage per hit. This is one of my favorite ultimates in the game. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it is absolutely devastating, and I love it so much, and we'll get more into that later. Her passive ability is called the Element of Surprise. For 3 seconds, when Deande uncloaks, all of her skills and attacks deal 25% additional damage. So activating Hollow Twin can be great because once you come out of being invisible from Hollow Twin, all of your skills and attacks deal an additional 25%. That is excellent. Her primary R2 attack is just pretty much her war fans. She'll just do a series of swinging, diagonal strikes, and pretty useful, pretty fast, I might add. And her L2 ability, she will throw her war fans for range attacks. She'll throw her right one, then a left one, and then both at the same time. And each one that she throws has a slight curve to it. The right one will kind of curve off to the right, the left one will curve off to the left. So pretty useful there. And that's really it for her basic skill setup. We're going to get more into that later and why I like her so much. But now we're going to get into her lore and backstory. So the first thing you should know about Deande is that Deande is actually not her real name. Her real name is actually removed from record from the Jennerit Empire's historical log. Every time her real name would be mentioned, it says name redacted instead in hashtags. So it's kind of weird that they would remove and pretty much try to erase her real identity. But her code name, her alias, is now just simply Deande. And basically what she was is, at a very young age, she was obviously chosen to be one of the Silent Sisters, similar to what Umbra was. And for a while, she was actually taken underneath Umbra's wing, Matron Diva, and they wanted to see if she was going to be loyal to the Empire. Empress Lenore wanted to see just how loyal Deande was to her and the Empire, and afterwards she was given the Oath of Sustainment and was made one of the Jennerit elite. The reason for this is because Empress Lenore was looking for a replacement for then Spymistress Giovanni, obviously the current Jennerit Spymistress before Deande took that position, because Empress Lenore predicted that Lothar Rendane would betray the Jennerit Empire. And eventually he did, and he entrusted that Deande, when the time was right, Deande be filled in on all of the secrets and all of what is going on and what needs to be done in order to secure peace and happiness for the Empire and to stop Rendane. So Deande has been working next to Lothar Rendane in secret, plotting to overthrow him and gaining his trust until that point. And one of the things that she's been actually responsible for is that she hopes that the Thralls would enter into an open rebellion against Rendane a second time after she helped spring Caldarius from his 100-year imprisonment. So that was all her handiwork. And so she's pretty much just his personal advisor, but she's secretly plotting to overthrow him from the inside. And that's her entire goal, is to just, obtain as much information she can as possible and wait till the last minute to come out into the open and declare her treachery against Rendane. The last thing I'd like to cover about Deande's lore is that pretty much once you defeat Rendane, once you unlock the War is Hardly Civil lore challenge, once you fulfill that, she pretty much does her own little audio log about how she's really opened up and how that, you know, she realized that, you know what, there's some change. There needs to be change, not just within everyone personally, but also within the Empire itself, that they're going to have to change their ways. The old precept of, you know, any deed, buy any deed at any price, that kind of needs to go away, that there are some prices that just cannot afford to be paid. And she's referencing to, for instance, you know, the extinction of, you know, everyone and all life in the universe at the hands of the Varelsi. She's referencing the fact that they had to fight to protect the very last Star Soloist, stop Rendane, and that the Rendane coming from the Jennerit Empire pretty much created all this mess. So pretty much Deande said, yeah, we're going to have to change our entire lifestyle, that this is a new age, it's a new era, and we're going to have to adopt some new morals and new standards and learn to live side by side with all the remaining peoples of the universe. We're going to have to learn to get along, and we're going to have to keep fighting to protect what we've got left, because it's all we've got left. And I really like that about Deande, how she reflects and changes and adopts a new persona, and pretty much says that, you know what, the old ways are not the best ways anymore. We're going to have to pretty much change and find something new to believe in, because we can't afford any more mistakes, with Solus being the last star left in the universe. And that's it for Deande's lore. Now we're going to head into her Helix loadout, and I'm just going to show you how I like to tear it up on the battlefield with this melee monster Deande. She is an absolute beast on the battlefield, so let me show you how I set her up. Okay, so right off the bat, level 1, I like to go with Wonder Twins. A portion of the damage dealt by Deande's Hollow Twin clone is returned to her health. That is excellent. I like taking advantage of her Hollow Twin clone. It can really make a difference. It can literally, you just gang up on your opponents, and out of all the damage the clone deals, 25% of it is returned to you as lifesteal. That's excellent. If you don't have Wonder Twins, you can go with Ground Zero, just so that her Burst Dash damages all enemies around Deande. Next up, level 2, I like to go with all safeties off, increasing the Hollow Twins' decoy damage. There's no point in increasing the decoy's health. Their health is so low that 30% is almost, you know, irrelevant. So all safeties off, increasing the damage that she dealt, you know, and allows us to take advantage of the increased lifesteal, so you can't really go wrong there. Next up, level 3, I like to go with Leech Steal. A portion of the damage dealt by all Warfan attacks is returned to Deande as lifesteal. I did like Uppercut before they changed it, because it used to be able to juggle enemies, and you could juggle them in the air almost infinitely if Deande's attacks were fast enough. But since they changed it to wounding your opponents instead of juggling them, I've gravitated more towards Leech Steal, so that's the way I like to go for level 3. Next up, level 4, I like to go with Drain Dash. Half the damage dealt by Burst Dash is returned to Deande as health. That is excellent. I like that. I like taking advantage of that. Lifesteal is excellent, you know, because it helps Deande survive those battles just a little bit longer, and it makes it so that she doesn't die or have to retreat from battle as often. Next up, level 5, I like to go with Beast of Momentum. Killing an enemy increases Deande's movement speed for a brief time. This works for any enemies, little minion robots, as well as, you know, bosses in enemy Battleborn. If you don't have Beast of Momentum as an option, you can go with Silent Strike. After uncloaking, Deande's attacks will slow enemies for a brief time. Pretty good there as well. So either one is perfectly fine. I never really was a fan of roguelikes, so Silent Strike and Beast of Momentum are my two choices for level 5. Next up, level 6, I like to go with Iris Echo. Just to increase the damage dealt by the exploding Hollow Twin, it increases the damage dealt, and enemies that are damaged by that explosion will be slowed for 3 seconds, which is pretty dang good and useful. It prevents them from escaping when they realize they've been fighting a clone and not the real Deande. If you don't have Iris Echo available, Escape Plan is pretty good just to give Deande that mobility. That way if she needs to beat a hasty retreat, she can. Next up, level 7, I like to go with Fan of War. Increasing the Warfan's melee damage, that is pretty dang good. The culling really doesn't do it for me because it only increases damage to weakened enemies and only by 23%. So that's really it. Now it's all of Deande's damage against them, not just the melee damage, but even still, I'm just not a huge fan of the culling. I like Fan of War because from that point on, it's always a more damage with her war blades, so I prefer Fan of War personally. Next up, level 8, I like to go with Energize, reducing the burst dash cooldown timer, allowing us to use it more often, allowing us to keep weakening our opponents and keep using the lifesteal that we're going to give it. Next up, level 9, I would prefer improved holographics, reducing Hollow Twin's cooldown timer, allowing us to use it more often, allowing us to take advantage of its lifesteal and its slowdown properties now that we've also augmented it here. So you really have nothing to complain about when you go with energized and improved holographics for 8 and 9, allowing you to use them more often to take advantage of them. Pretty useful. And level 10, this is the one where it varies depending upon whether it's story mode or versus. In story mode, I like to go with Gathering Storm just because if I kill a bunch of weak little minions, it reduces the cooldown timer pretty noticeably. 10 seconds, that's excellent. Next up, for versus mode, I'd like to go with Doppelgang Up. When I activate Blink Storm, Deande will spawn a little Hollow Twin, making it so that if I come out of Blink Storm and the enemies I'm targeting are still alive, I have a Hollow Twin that's able to take advantage of my enemies as they're weak and helpless, and as they're near death anyway. And that's really it for my Helix loadout for Deande. Pretty standard, straightforward, and very effective. And now we're going to get back to the gameplay. So when it comes to gear and pieces of equipment to equip with Deande, I've really fallen in love with the Bolas Target Finder. Damaging enemies with skills increases damage dealt to them by 5.1% for 10 seconds, and that's all damage that they take. So if you combo Bolas Target Finder with, say, for instance, Deande's Blink Storm, they're going to take a shit ton of damage, and they're held completely helpless. They are stunned for the entire duration of Blink Storm, making them complete sitting ducks that take even further damage while your allies are wailing on them. It's just too good of a combo. Bolas Target Finder is one of the best pieces of equipment that I have. Another good one that I like is the Vow of Vengeance. I like using it just because it does increase in attack damage, increase in attack speed, and it stacks an extra 0.84 attack damage for every melee hit, but it can have up to 10 stacks. So that's another 8.4 attack damage tacked onto the 8.39 attack damage we had earlier. So that's an extra 16% attack damage, and then a slight increase in attack speed. So the Bolas Target Finder and the Vow of Vengeance are two pieces of gear that I absolutely love to use on Deande. I like to use them on a lot of melee characters, but Deande is able to take advantage of both of them pretty damn effectively. Now when it comes to tactics and actually playing with Deande, learn how to ambush your opponents. Learn to activate Deande's Hollow Twin even if you don't absolutely need it. It's excellent to sneak up around enemies, like you activate the Hollow Twin and then it'll charge the front lines, and Deande takes the side path past enemy sentries, use it to attack and destroy enemy sentry turrets. Take out their defenses from the behind, and by the time their Hollow Twin is dead and they realize what happened, you've already gotten all the way around on their flank. You've taken out their defenses, and now you're going to attack them from the rear, and you're pretty much going to sandwich them while your teammates attack them. Another great thing I like about it is the Blink Strike. The Blink Storm, rather. The Blink Storm is one of my favorite ultimates in the game. I already told you how you combo it with Bolas Target Finder, but you can also combo it with enemy skills and You can combo it with your allies' skills, with your teammates. It is so useful. Like for instance, using Eldragon's Dragon Splash or Oscar Mike's, grenade launcher, with napalm on the ground. You use that on an opponent while they're trapped by Blink Storm and they're taking all that damage. That's just devastating because they're sitting there for the entire duration of Blink Storm. They're completely helpless. They can't fight back. It is so brutal to just literally sit there and be at the mercy of whatever your enemies are doing. And you notice I love to use it in a one-on-one engagement. Using it in groups of enemies minimizes the damage done because all 10 of Deande's strikes are spread out against the multiple enemies. So the more enemies you stun with Blink Storm, the less damage each enemy takes. But if you target one enemy with Blink Storm, that person will take every single attack. So if you want to go for a good damage, you best target one specific opponent that's giving you problems, that's a tough kill, and you just target that one person and you just punish them. And you make it so that you combo it with your allies as well. Like you saw earlier in the video, I targeted an enemy Oscar Mike, and while that Oscar Mike was taking the damage from my Blink Storm, and Atticus just ran up to him and just started wailing on him. And at that point, that Oscar Mike had absolutely no chance. So, Blink Storm is one of the best ultimates in the game, in my opinion. Not because of the damage, but because it just makes the opponents completely helpless. It traps them, and it makes it so that they can't fight back, and your teammates just get free hits on a helpless, defenseless opponent. There's just no other way to describe that other than absolutely brutal. As you can see right there, I just took advantage of it, took out Toby, and now we gotta attack Phoebe here, but Blink Storm is just so useful. I cannot stress how much I love this ultimate. Her other skills are excellent. I would definitely use Hollow Twin, be proficient at knowing when to use Hollow Twin effectively, offensively and defensively. And Deande is pretty useful. Her Warblades do have a slight tendency to miss targets. If your opponents are not perfectly centered in the crosshairs in the middle of the screen, it's very easy for Deande to miss her melee attacks. So you're going to have to be patient and try really hard to line those up. I was able to do it somewhat effectively, but for the most part, it's really, really tough right off the bat to play as Deande with her melees, because I feel like her melees just miss all the time. So you definitely need to be patient when learning Deande, and that's really all I've got for this gameplay. Deande's a ton of fun to play as, and that's all I've got. I hope you guys enjoyed this gameplay. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, and I'll see you all in my next video. This is RadTech Shoe signing off.